everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies featuring the Dungeonmeister Cookbook, which is over at the table. So far this month, we've made a necklace of fireballs, summoned a wall of garlic bread, and made a roast porpoise. This week we're going to have the last recipe for this tour of the Dungeonmeister Cookbook, as we make the dessert, Spenser's Minty discs, also known as melted mint cookies. As usual, the ingredients are waiting for us over at the table, so let's make our way over there. We've got all the ingredients here. So for this recipe, we're going to need a pound of Andes or other green chocolate wafer mints. I've already unwrapped them, and the actual first step is to get them into a bowl, which I've done. I did that before I started shooting. Then we've got 3/4 of a cup of butter or margarine. I'm using margarine. 1.5 cups of packed dark brown sugar. It's probably not packed, but I'm going to take some liberties there. 2 tablespoons of water, which is what this is going to be for. Obviously, I'm just going to be grabbing tap water for that. 1 12-ounce package of semisweet chocolate chips. We need 2 eggs. I'm taking some size liberties there. The recipe calls for large, but I'm using extra large. 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. 1¼ teaspoons of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So that's everything we need for the recipe. So now let's move into the kitchen and start cooking and start baking everything. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the actual first step is to take the mints, is to put the mints into a large bowl, breaking them into large chunks if you have fewer than, say, 80 mints. But I had plenty because I picked up 2 packages of the mints because I needed a pound. So that step's actually done, and the mints are already ready to go. So the first step we're actually going to start with here is in a medium-heavy saucepan, which this probably isn't, but we'll work with it for now. We're going to actually heat the butter, brown sugar, and water over low heat until the butter's melted, and that should take about 3 to 5 minutes. So you can see I've got the butter and the water already in the pan. There's the sugar, which we'll put in a clump. Then we'll turn the heat on, that should be the front burner, to low. So we're just kind of going to start mixing that up. We want to let that go until the butter's melted. So I'm going to start breaking the butter up a little bit. I'm going to have to try to be careful to stir it so the sugar doesn't scorch. You try to break the sugar up a little bit. And while we wait for that, we'll go ahead and talk about the little bit of backstory on the Spenser's Minty discs. I usually don't bring this on camera, but we'll make an exception here. Created by the beloved brother of a somewhat more copyrighted wizard, these exceptionally easy cookies combine rich chocolate with the zing of mint in a way that screams holiday cheer, but that's no reason to save them for the winter time. Sure, they may not float your belongings a few feet above the ground, but you'll feel like you're floating with every bite. Well, we'll find out if that holds true when we get to the taste test, but we are quite a long ways away from any kind of taste test, so yeah, we'll have to wait and see if these make you float. We will find out soon enough, though. So while we wait for this to melt, I do want to talk a little bit about Mystical Munchies. Now, I'll talk more about this during my end of month recap for March, but it's actually been a really interesting month with the recipes that I've been making out of this Dungeonmeister Cookbook. I actually did enjoy the coconut chicken, but I need to figure out a way to see if that batter gets a little bit easier to make if I add more milk to it. It probably does, but maybe that'll be something else we consider, is we do like a revisit episode on some of the recipes that either flopped out or I thought needed changing. But that'll be another story for another time. We also made the summon wall of garlic bread, and I think part of the problem I had with that recipe was because I was using a French loaf rather than the ciabatta bread that the recipe actually calls for. So it'll probably turn out a little bit better when I actually use ciabatta bread. But it definitely felt like just another typical garlic bread recipe. At least it was made there with the changes I made to it. So maybe it'll actually turn out better when I actually use the ciabatta loaf like I'm supposed to use with it. But again, largely more effort than I probably want to put in for garlic bread. As for the roast pork, which was the garlic studded pork tenderloin, I actually did really like that one. I guess it was a little smaller than I was expecting. It was a 4-serving recipe, and I guess I kind of underestimated how small. Well, I guess I maybe overestimated the size a little bit of those pork tenderloins. I think I was expecting a little bit more, but just kind of my random musing there. So we're waiting for this to finish melting. But the only thing I seem to be accomplishing here is getting the... Well, we actually seem to be breaking up the butter pretty well, so hopefully that'll help speed the... Hopefully that'll help to speed the melting process along. But, so I think what I'm going to do here is, rather than bore you guys with watching the butter melt, I'll actually turn the camera off and we'll come back. Actually, I probably should just keep stirring this up because looks like the next step actually has to happen pretty much immediately. So, as much as I want to come back as much as I just want to pause for the boring part, I kind of do need this to happen in pretty quick succession. So I'm just going to bring the next step somewhat close to me, but I'm going to keep it off shot for the time being. So the next thing we're going to be doing here is we're actually going to need to add the chocolate chips and stir it and cook it, stirring continuously until they partially melt. After about 3 minutes, I'll want to take those off the heat and continue to stir until the chocolate is completely melted. So we'll see how this is coming along. It seems to be coming along pretty well now. Okay. Gotta get this all a little bit more mixed up. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to wait for that last little piece of butter. Looks like there's a couple more stuck in here that don't seem to want to completely melt. So I'm going to wait for those to melt, but I do have the chocolate chips just off shot here. And actually, it looks like you had a little bit of them in shot. I'll just go ahead and mix up the sugar a little bit more. You might have been noticing also in the earlier shot a pack of skewers. Those aren't part of the recipe, but I will need at least one of them for a later step in the recipe. And it looks like the butter is getting mostly melted now. So at this point, now I will take the semi-sweet chocolate chips. Cut those. And we'll add them in, and we'll stir until the chocolate's partially melted. We'll give it about They say to give it about 3 minutes, so I think that's about what we'll give it. So I'll go ahead and time this, and we'll just keep stirring it. I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world to watch me cook to just watch me cook like this, but I think I'm trying to get a little bit more practice with. I'm trying to get a bit more practice with getting used to cooking with the camera. So it's just me trying to walk through every single step, and I think that was part of the problem I had with the no-bake cookies the first time, was just turning the camera off and letting things and making things happen that way. I'm still kind of getting used to the idea of cooking with the camera. It's been a little bit of a challenge with this new segment of Mystical Munchies. And it's going to be more of a practice thing for me than anything. Just kind of getting used to having the camera around while I'm cooking. It seems like since the no-bake cookies flopped out pretty hard, it seems like most of the other recipes that I've been making have turned out pretty well. It also helps that I keep the cookbook close. I'm trying to see if the chocolate chips start melting on me. Looks like they're melting decently well. It's actually melting pretty well, but I think I'm going to actually give this recipe, I think I'm going to give it another minute on the heat before I pull it off. Just because I don't entirely trust how some of these chocolate chips are looking. I'm gonna keep stirring it, but I'm also gonna check it at like a minute intervals until I think it'll be able to pull off the heat and finish melting the chocolate chips. Alright, I like where the melting is going here, but I think I'm going to give it one more minute. That should be... I think once I give it another minute, that should be enough time where I think pulling it off the burner will actually let me completely melt will actually let it completely melt while I continue to stir it. Sorry, as you may also be able to hear, I'm kind of still sniffling a little bit. I'm largely over the cold, but I'm still having some very, last side effects of it. Okay, yeah, looking at the consistency now, I think I can probably pull it off the heat, and it should be fine. Alright, so yeah, we are going to go ahead and pull this off the heat, and I'll stir it, we'll move it over here. Now I want to keep stirring it until the chocolate completely melts. Okay. So we're probably going to need to give that about another couple of minutes of stirring. Okay. Trying to make sure it doesn't scorch too badly. I think it's fine just because I've been stirring it so much. Okay, I think we should be, well, looks like we still have some looks like we still have some pieces coming through, but whoa. Okay, that wasn't good. Let me mix this. Let me get a paper towel and try to clean some of that up. Bring the large bowl the large bowl I'm going to need next a little bit closer. Okay, I think whoa, okay, you get back down there. Okay. Alright, I think we are pretty much good here, so the next step now is I'm going to pour this into my aforementioned large bowl as I jar it on the underside of the cabinet and hit it pretty hard putting it down. So we'll scoop this all in. Just so you can see that I'm trying to get as much of it as I can out. Okay, I think that's as much of it as I'm probably getting out. So now we need to let that cool. So now we need to let that cool for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. Let me get a timer set on here. So we'll let that set 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to the next steps of the recipe. It's actually been a little bit more than 10 minutes, but I wanted to give the first batch I wanted to give the chocolate a little bit more time to cool because I had extended the time on the oven, on the heat twice. So now we're going to use an electric mixer, which I have right here, to beat our 2 eggs in. Here's our first one at a time until they're thoroughly combined. All right, so we'll go ahead, crack that. Oh, shoot. And I got a piece of shell in there. I do not want that shell getting into the recipe, into the actual cookies. So I'm going to have to scoop that out al pronto. Right, camera back to touch so I can get at a spoon. Gotcha. Okay, I'll leave that spoon close by in case I need it again. Now we can bring the camera back in, and that wants to be on, what, medium speed? Oh boy, okay. I'll kill that for a second so I can bring the second egg. How am I going to be able to stand this up? Oh, this is exactly what I was afraid of. And I don't think I had the dexterity to do this without... Okay. Yeah, I definitely didn't have the dexterity to do that one-handed. But at least we have no shell this time. Okay. All right. Oop, whoa. Okay, so there's the batter after the eggs are combined. Can we rest it? Okay, that kind of works. All right, so after we've done that, now we're going to reduce the speed to low when I turn it back on, but we're going to add the flour, the baking soda, and the salt. So we want, I believe we established 2.5 cups of flour. I'm doing most of the measuring off camera because I'm trying to be very careful about it, and there's not a lot of room. There's not a lot of room over there, so pour just a little bit of that off. Whoop, not that much. Okay, that's looks like I got a little bit just underneath. And a little bit more back when I'm, once again, trying to be very careful while doing this. Oh, come on. Don't do this to me. All right, a little more again. Right, there's our first 2 cups, so we'll put that in. Then we need another 1/2 cup of that. Okay, you definitely need more than that. Still more. Okay. I think we're all good there. There's the other 1/2 cup of flour. And let's double check the ingredients. The eggs can go back. The flour will be going up shortly as well. Let's see, we want 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking soda. Let me get the flour flour out of my way before I go any further. Right. Okay. Here's the 1 teaspoon. It's a bit of a generous 1 teaspoon, but it'll work. And 1/4. That'll be a little stingier on since I took liberties with the teaspoon I put in. And the 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay. That's a bit of a generous 1/2 teaspoon of salt, but again, for our purposes, it'll work fine. All right, so now that we've put all that in, that spoon can also go away. That's what I needed for the eggshell. Baking soda can go up as well. Now we want to beat this until it's just blended on low speed. So we'll turn this. Is that one? Okay. Okay, that's the one. Turn that just a little bit. I'm not sure I'm liking what I'm hearing from the mixer, but it seems like everything's combining okay. So we'll go ahead and... Alright, so we wanted it until just blended. So that might be maybe a little too far, but I think that's where we're going to go with it. So with that, now we want to refrigerate this for an hour, so we'll come back. So alright, I will get this, actually I'm going to get those off so I can work on cleaning those up. Then this will go into the fridge. And we will start that for an hour, so we'll come back after an hour. Alright, I've already preheated the oven to 350 degrees, which they say to do with 10 minutes left in the oven, but let me show you this. So it seems like it's just soft. I think it's just a little bit harder than I was expecting, but I'm hoping it'll be soft enough for the next step in the recipe. So I've lined 2 baking sheets with aluminum foil. These are 2 pretty big baking sheets. Actually, this is 1 big baking sheet. The second one's off shot. Now what I want to do is I want to take about a teaspoon size, I want to make teaspoon-sized balls of cookie dough and place them 2 inches apart on these sheets I've lined with aluminum foil. In an ideal world, I should be able to make 2 4x10 grids on the baking sheets, but we'll find out what happens. So, we'll scoop in here. Get about a teaspoon out. I'm not going to do all of this batter because there's a lot in here. I just want to do enough to get the demo. Okay, so there's 1. There's the second. Alright, there's the second one. We'll do 2 more on channel. We'll do 2 more on camera. Here's the third. And then here's the last one I'll do on camera. Oop. That's maybe a little big, but I think we can work with it. Okay. Alright, so that's the first 4. We'll back up just so you can see what I'm looking for here. And then we'll come back when all of these are ready. By a minor miracle, I managed to make exactly 80 cookies, which is what the recipe calls for. So now these are going to go into the preheated oven for 12 to 13 minutes until just set and the tops of the cookies are beginning to crack. So I'll take these into the oven. We'll see if we can get them all in. There's one. Except I don't think that's going to close it. Oh, yes, it will. Okay, good. That's what I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure that that the oven would close with these longer cookie sheets in there. Okay, so that one I can turn on the bottom row. And then this last one should be able to go in there, hopefully without interference. Perfect. Alright, then we'll come back in about, I'd say 12 minutes probably, for the next step in the recipe. Time got away from me a little bit here, but now I'm going to go ahead and pull these out of the oven, and look how they turned out. Alright, I'm going to leave okay, I'm going to have to move the camera. No, I'm not. Come on. There we go. Alright, some of these ended up sticking together, but no help for it at this point. So where do I want to put this one down? I'll put this one down here. Ow! Okay, that's starting to burn through my hand, but what needs to happen now is almost immediately I'm going to need to take those Andes mints. I'm just grabbing the recipe here. Yeah, now I need to place a mint on top of each hot cookie. So we'll do that. There. Whoop. Okay, that's the first one down. I'll get another batch and shot. Did I put... Oh. Okay. Bring that. I think we'll just get them... I'm just trying to get them out of the way. Next batch can come in shot. I'd rather use the oven mitts to put the cookies down on. Okay, we need to hurry up with this. Probably not too much, though. Let's grab a handful of the mints and get them on each one. Alright. And then the last batch. Turn the camera just a touch. Okay. Yeah, it looks like some of these ended up getting stuck together just because the cookie sheets, these baking sheets were so much smaller than I expected them to be. So that should be all of them now with the candy on top of them. So I can bag the rest of these up and I'll throw these in the fridge. And as the recipes start to soften, or as the chocolates start to soften, I'll need to use the skewer. I need to use one of the bamboo skewers to mix it, to brush it around a bit. Let me get this last batch out because it looks like the first one is starting to soften already. Alright, let me grab one of the skewers, which of course I put on the table way away from me. Which side do these things want to open on? Looks like I'm going to have to pull it off of here and rebag it from the looks of it, which I can't pretend to be surprised about, but here's what we're going to do. Actually, I probably could just use a fork for this, in all honesty. Fork or a spoon. I'll just grab a spoon out, spread it around. This looks like some of the chocolate's going to end up overflowing, but I don't think there's any help for that here. Okay. Alright, check on these as well. I might well have gotten to these a little too late, but we'll find out soon enough. Alright, so it looks like we just have the last batch of cookies. Looks like we just have the last batch here. You need to get back on there. Okay. Alright, so I've just got the last batch of cookies that I'm waiting to soften. But I'm waiting for the candies to soften on them. So once we swirl the last few, we'll need to let those cool completely. But when we come back, we'll be back over at my desk ready for the taste test. Man alive, did these cookies take a lot to make. But they're all done, everything's setting nicely. So let's grab one and we'll move back over to my desk for the taste test. If I would have planned this a little better, I probably would have actually been able to buy a box of Thin Mints to compare this to, because the game the group game area has been smelling so minty pretty much all afternoon, just because of having the cookies there cooling. But let's take a taste and see how these turned out. Seems like it's a good texture. I was also using a little bit of extra butter on my hands and on the scoop as I was getting the cookies ready, but let's see how it turned out. Oh, these turned out great. I wish I could have grabbed the Thin Mints I wish I could have grabbed a box of Thin Mints just for a comparison, but this may actually fill the minty cookie craving. I'll go ahead and finish this off. Yeah, definitely turned out well. Seemed like it was just moist enough, and what I was doing, like I mentioned, was running butter along my hands and the scoop, just to make it a little bit easier to handle everything. Because I've never actually done a cookie recipe like this before. So yeah, I think my coworkers will be happy when I bring these in, but that will do it for this episode of Mystical Munchies, and that's our first cookbook finished up. Next week we'll be in a new cookbook, but I'll reveal that new cookbook in my end of March recap. As for the games, Sunday we're wrapping Pandemic Month with World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King Pandemic, and Wednesday we'll be back into the background campaign for Hero Realms. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.